Good evening, my children.
Welcome aboard, passengers. So today we're talking about Transformers, the father of modern Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Thought you were going to cap it at just modern Marvels. And I'm like, oh, that show my dad likes to watch? Anyway, yeah, I don't know how many of you guys have really noticed. There are a lot of strange links between the movie... Oh god,
the movie,
the TCU. Wait, no, the Transformers Cinematic Universe,
the TCU and the MCU,
and how it gave birth to the latter.
So we're going to talk about some really technical stuff, but it'll all make sense in the end. That why we have to give these histories. We have to talk about princesses. We have to talk about Disney, of course, who's the parent company of Marvel,
and everything else.
And then we have to kind of talk about the conglomerate that Disney owns. If you didn't know, Disney owns shares in Transformers. Not only Transformers licensing, but Transformers like comics, Transformers, the part of ILM, which Transformers was kind of their big movie that brought them back into the spotlight. And then a lot of other stuff.
I think we should go ahead and start at the beginning. This is the whole idea for this podcast was actually birthed by the fact that we recently rewatched. We only made it to 3. I would have made it to 5. But somebody wussed out. Anyway, so we decided to rewatch some of the Transformers movies, and I had never...
We couldn't find the extra features of the 4th movie.
Well, there is no extra features of the 3rd.
There was.
We never even bothered looking at the 4th and 5th DVDs that we own.
That's true.
Because we kind of had what we needed by the 3rd movie anyways. The 1st and 2nd are going to be the primary focus of what we're going to talk about in this and in another podcast that's going to actually delve into, like, the strange, like, American politics that actually feed into Transformers. But this one is going to be about the fact that there's a pretty abnormal linkage from Transformers to Marvel. And I guess the way that we ended up paraphrasing it was that Transformers walked so Marvel could run. And hey, I raised a fist. Squaring up. This really came about because we were watching the special features on the first movie, and I noticed that there was
Transformers movie.
Yes, the first Transformers movie, which I don't know, you guys remember, came out in 2007. Naturally was in production before that, anyways. However, on the special features for the disc, there is a thing called, I think, trailer or Iron Man trailer.
It was the first Iron Man trailer. Yeah.
It was the one for the 2008 Iron Man, basically the movie that kicked off the MCU without the public knowing where it was going to go, but I can guarantee you at this point, knowing what we know now, that Disney and Marvel definitely knew where that was going to go. They definitely knew the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even if it wasn't going to go by that name, was going to happen and how. So take it away, my man. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys think it's weird that a freaking Marvel, like, for me, it was disorienting. Why was that on there? And then, of course, we looked it up, and there are a lot of reasons why the Iron Man trailer is on the Transformers disc. I don't actually remember. Did they play that at the end, like an end credit thing in the theaters?
So in theaters, the first time you saw an Iron Man trailer was actually at the theatrical release of Transformers. So Iron Man was not really featured heavily. It was kind of back in the day where they would like make teaser trailers for teaser trailers. So they would like, if you want to see the Iron Man trailer, you have to go see the Transformers movie. And that's what Iron Man was at that time, was, hey, it might be a long time before the next Transformers movie came out. A sequel hadn't been announced yet, but here's this new movie that's going to be coming out next year, which was 2008. Mm-hmm. They played heavily with each other. Paramount, DreamWorks, and ILM were all producing that. Unbeknownst to most of the fans, however, Disney acquired most of Lucasfilms in 2006, only acquiring the rest of George Lucas's share after the flop of Strange Magic.
Which should be its own podcast.
For those of you who don't know, Strange Magic was a very expensive sort of uncanny valley film about
3D
fairies.
animated fairy film. If you guys ever watched Epic, it was like a really strange, I think Epic came out after. Whatever order it was in, Epic is a much better execution of what Strange Magic was either trying to imitate or trying to make in the first place. Again, I don't remember which order they came in, but
it was released under Touchstone Pictures, where all Disney movies go to die at this point in time, or where this is basically like the Touchstone Pictures is owned by Disney, and it's kind of used as a shield. You know, they don't want it to be put into the Disney universe, so they put it under the Touchstone flag. For those of you who don't know, Nightmare Before Christmas was released under Touchstone at first, and then once it did well, Disney was like, oh yeah, we'll totally own up to this.
Classic Disney. Classic Disney.
But for those of you who don't know, Disney bought Lucasfilms in 2006. Once Disney bought Lucasfilms, they also acquired a little side company named ILM.
Industrial Light and Magic.
For those of you who don't know, ILM won the bid for all of the special effects in the first Transformers movie. You can watch the Transformers, like, special effects.
I mean, God, just go on YouTube. There are so many of them. Just Google the words Transformers ILM. I mean, you'll find an endless amount of behind-the-scenes footage. They tell you all about it.
A lot of the people who worked on Transformers were, like, super fans of Transformers, so, you know, all of those designs were by you guys.
And also a lot of the people like Roberta Orsi and, Alex, what's his name? I can't remember at the top of my head, but some of those people actually went on to do things for Transformers Prime, which came out in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So would have been in production probably around the time the second Transformers movie came out. Now, I don't actually think that those people had anything to do with the second movie, as there were a lot of external problems with that one.
Yeah.
Which is what led it to being super unsuccessful. But the milkage of what Disney was going to end up doing was basically using Transformers as a groundwork to see what people now come to complain about as like reboot-itis, where it's like everything is either being remade, redone, you know, resurrected and remastered, or just milked for sequels. And that's exactly what Transformers was doing. Pirates of the Caribbean, which was a Disney-owned property, came out before Transformers, but I don't know if you guys noticed that the fourth and fifth movie of Pirates probably came out. God, I can't even remember that off the top of my head.
It was after or around the same time that the Transformers 4 movie came out. And that's the thing, is that a lot of people don't realize is that the reason why some of these movies, meaning Transformers, was funded is that it was basically this huge...
Pirates 1, 2003, Pirates 2, 2006, Pirates 3, 2007, 4 was 2011, which was when the third Transformers came out, and the fifth one, Dead Men Tell No Tales, is in 2017, which was after the major Michael Bayism was over with.
Yeah. So, both Pirates of the Caribbean and Transformers were these super big blockbuster action films. And then you have the slow nurturing of Marvel itself, where Iron Man 2 and The Incredible Hulk were the only two movies released outside of Disney directly. And Disney was involved in making the special effects in those movies.
Mm-hmm.
Disney purchased Marvel in 2009. However, 2 years later, unfortunately, Disney did not like this. A Marvel employee, after a contract wouldn't be renewed, leaked online that Disney had purchased Marvel Studios and the Marvel comics. For those of you who remember, the original Transformers comics were Marvel comics.
We're talking pre-IDW, pre-Dreamwave, like the OG comics.
So Disney now held Transformers shares of licensing that Marvel owns. And we'll talk about that later when we're going to talk about Hasbro and Disney's relationship. And that's going to be more technical. I'm sorry, it's not super fun, but it's definitely going to be more about how Disney can kind of change not only the entertainment marketplace, but can kind of boss Hasbro around. If you think that Hasbro is making decisions about what their original toy lines they are putting out without Disney involved, unfortunately, I would have to say, that's a dream that's very short-lived because Disney is involved in every decision that Hasbro makes. So, moving right along. Some of you may have noticed that, ever since Marvel kind of came out in full force, Transformers started to take kind of a back seat. But we're going to go back to 2011, in which 3 movies came out all at the same time, which was going to be kind of like the final nail in the coffin in the entertainment industry, where Thor, Captain America, and the 3rd Transformers movie all came out after it came out that Disney owned Marvel. Every single one of these movies blew out their box office. So I think Transformers made over $1 billion, and each respective Thor and Captain America, I think they both made $700 million. Don't quote me on that.
You have it down
I have it down here. Let's go click the floor, because I know Thor had a very low budget. I lied. Its box office was $449.3 million, but it still blew its budget out of water.
Captain America's was $370.6 million. And Transformers Dark of the Moon box office was $1.124 billion.
And you have to remember the 3rd Transformers movie came out after a really sucky film, the 2nd one, that everyone said was bad. The critics, the fans. And it's really funny, too, because the fans are pretty much who made those live action movies. They got it directly from feedback from the fans. Marvel does not do that. Marvel hires fans and gives them, enough rope to hang themselves with, as unfortunate we learned from Joss Whedon. Disney bought ILM in 2006, so they have now control over ILM for a really long period of time, basically until Universal bought, I think it was either Paramount Pictures or DreamWorks. They bought one of the 2 other companies that were involved with Transformers. You could actually purchase Transformers products in their parks.
In Universal?
No, in Disney.
Oh.
In Disneyland and Walt Disney World.
That would have been so wild. I just remember going to Universal when I was younger and seeing not only Prime merch, but the movie merch, in a mass abundance. And that's because they had the ride that opened up in, God, I don't know, 2012, 2013-ish?
Yeah.
Something like that.
So up until that ride opened, you could find Transformers merchandise in Walt Disney World.
Whack.
Parks.
Whack.
Yeah, whack. So Disney was actively making money off of Hasbro's toy products and the film itself. Once, of course, Universal Pictures bought something, Paramount or DreamWorks, they managed to move all of that over to their park. And Transformers became a vital role in negotiating for Marvel to appear in the Eastern Park for Walt Disney World. Now, we're not going to really confirm where we got this information from, because we were not sure how many people it will get in trouble, but this is all stuff that you can go online. We'll give links to different articles where you can quite clearly see that Disney is using Transformers to basically... Was using Transformers to basically focus test an audience to see if we keep producing big and loud trash, will people come to see it? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes. Age of Extinction, Bumblebee, Last Night all made or exceeded their budget, especially worldwide. And so... Of course, Marvel went on to make, how many films do they have now?
I think they have 16 or 20. Hold on. That's something that's easily Googleable.
I think I have it. It's right there. There are 43 Marvel movies?
No, there are 22.
Okay.
22 mainstream, 22 to 23.
Wow. So there are 23 Marvel movies. About.
As this podcast debuts.
So what does that have to do with Transformers toys? I'm not really sure if anyone has noticed, but the movies have kind of gone on hold. There was a huge gap between,
between Last Night and Bumblebee. Well, it changed hands, which shocked a lot of people. Travis Knight had to kind of step away from Leica. And that company hasn't really made hardly anything since, Kubo and the Two Strings, I think?
Yeah, I think
maybe one more after that.
The Missing Link.
Missing Link,
yeah,
which I definitely know didn't do that, as well as Paranorman or Coraline and stuff like that. So I don't know. Apparently he got the go ahead and make the second Bumblebee movie or make the Optimus Prime franchise. Now, it's just going in circles now. But I don't know. It's fascinating to see why it's continuing to move forward, and yet how many people are so loud and vocal online about oh, I'm tired of this, and it's well, everyone else isn't, I guess, because they'll go and see it because they're not worried about the facets of the movie industry or the entertainment industry at large. They don't really care what it says about themselves. They don't care what it says about Earth. They don't care what it says about America or whatever market it's being, shoved on. Because in the end, we've all come to kind of realize, especially with Disney as a very, top tier example, the money's never going to stop.
And I would really like to know how many explosions each Marvel movie has, and if it correlates to how much people like the movie. Yeah, sure, some people have valid reasons for not liking the Captain Marvel movies, but is it actually the fact that it didn't have as many explosions as, for example, Iron Man?
The drama was more emotionally driven, whereas Iron Man was more action driven.
Yeah, they blew up a mountain.
Among other things. I mean, you've got two robots literally duking it out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So what the lesson that Marvel learned from Transformers was that you could pretty much put out anything, and nostalgia and action could get you far enough along.
And they'll get you a broad enough audience that it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a Transformers fan to go and have seen that on July 4th, 2007.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It was A, something to do, B, just a new movie. Go see the new movie. I'm a movie buff, whatever. There's so many reasons why people are just, shrug, we'll go see it. Back then, going to the movies did not cost you $14 a piece like it does where we live. So, it was $5 a pop, whatever, I'm walking in. And you could be entertained by a lot of, colorful throw up for a few hours.
Yeah, and I think I particularly watched the July 7th debut for $5 at a matinee. So it wasn't like I was breaking the bank. It was literally oh, let me see this movie.
Yeah, so not only do they nab the general, everyday person that's whatever, I've got kids, or whatever, I've got a teenage boy, or
it's really hot outside and the movie theater's good. That was a huge
it's literally
reason.
Anything. And then alongside that, you're always going to have not even the extremist Transformers fans. There are a lot of people that are just passing fans that will still religiously go and attend these premieres or follow the shows or follow the debuts of the comics because they're just this is my thing. It's the same with Star Wars. I've kind of been it's been a little far-fetched for me and few and far between to really see a Star Wars fan that doesn't go and know pretty much everything about Star Wars. I mean, I think literally I've only met one person who's yeah, I'm just interested in this stuff post 2000.
Yeah.
And it's all right. Or even people's kids who only really grew up with anything post Clone Wars cartoons. I mean, I grew up watching that and I'm an adult. Yeah. So it's we're old enough now to now go retroactively invest in these interests. So I wonder if in 20 years, or even fewer, maybe 15 years or less, if children of people our age are now going to have these children that they are this is my baby, Transformers. Yeah. And it's weird because Star Wars, also owned by the same company, also faced a lot of, Disney was kind of so many people were just sweating about them acquiring these properties. I remember the outcry from Marvel fans when Disney acquired them, and people were you're gonna ruin it. And I'm I'm not gonna give my 2 cents on that. But it would have been interesting to see if anybody else was going to pick up that property, because that was literally sitting on a sack of money, and Disney knows that when they see anything that they think is remotely a good enough idea, because they'll even take terrible ideas, shove them full of money, and they'll somehow get to be bigger and better than they could have been, potentially by a small indie company, you know. But at the same time, I would have been actually more interested, as I am, as a passing superhero, like, you know, DC Marvel fan. What would it be like if independent studios had, like, you know, this person's doing Iron Man, this person took over Thor, this person took over a character nobody's even heard of before, and they made them mainstream.
Doctor Strange.
I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I mean, the thing is people are never happy with Disney, but they are always content with Disney.
And the thing is that if you didn't know it, Transformers are Disney movies. You are supporting Disney every single time you buy a Transformers product and a Transformers pretty much anything, unless it's third party. Congratulations. You love the mouse and you didn't even know it. Which leads me to my next subject, which is princesses.
Oh, Lord.
This will feel like a complete tangent, but for those of you that like the Transformers toys and the Transformers pretty much everything, you might have noticed that since 2015-ish, the kind of like quality and amount of Transformers toys that have been released direct from Hasbro are either like specific to collectors or usually, or usually avoid a younger audience, with the exception of BotBots. There is a reason for this, and it actually has everything to do with Disney princesses. I believe there is a post on Tumblr making a rounds that links to a Bloomberg article and explains this. Mattel, the people who own Barbie, used to create, sell, make all of Disney's toys. So Disney's princesses, anything that was sort of geared towards girls or female audiences, was made by Mattel. And then Mattel made their own princess line. This was called Ever After High, and it was similar to something that Disney was making at the time called Descendants. And what Disney did is they took away their $500 million contract with Mattel and moved it over to Hasbro. And then they proceeded to undersell all of the Mattel's line of dolls, princess dolls. They would price all of their products at $4 less, whether or not it costs them a deficit, because they're Disney and they can do that. And Mattel basically no longer makes those princess dolls, the Ever After High dolls, anymore. They don't make them. They're not on the shelf. You'd be hard-pressed to find Monster High dolls as well, because apparently Disney also felt that was a threat towards their Descendants line.
To be clear, the reason that Disney swiped the contract away from Mattel was because Mattel was becoming successful.
Yeah.
And Mattel was what? Not even doing it maliciously.
No.
They were kind of just like, this is what we do. We make little girl toys. Yeah. And they did it well. Ever After High, like, that was something I heard all the time, and I wasn't even invested in it. But, like, you could find clips on you, like, just people with them on YouTube. Oh, my God, it was everywhere. Target was overflowing with them.
Yeah. And what this proves to us is that Hasbro and Disney are partners. Hasbro and Disney have major partnerships. Hasbro creates almost every single one of Disney's toy lines. Star Wars, Marvel figures, obviously princesses now. And Pixar things too.
Yeah. So Disney animation, you've got like the princesses, and you've got the things that they animate now, like freaking
Luca and all that
Big
stuff.
Hero 6 and all that stuff.
So Hasbro is creating all of Walt Disney's company's toys. So they have to be very gentle and create something that doesn't directly interfere
or detract
from the mouse, from what Disney is creating. Or they potentially lose these millions, possibly billions. It could have gone up since 15, sorry. It could have gone up since 2015, but especially with like the recent Black Series for Star Wars and things like that, where you have all these huge collector's items that have a pretty hefty price tag on them, those contracts are probably what's keeping Hasbro afloat. So Hasbro has to run this very thin line and create Transformers media that not only hits a very specific people, like, for example, collectors. Disney doesn't care if Hasbro goes after men, older women. They don't care. If you want that toy for $75, that's fine. But Hasbro creating toys for boys in Transformers and having them be massively successful puts their contracts at risk. Puts their contracts at risk. And that's a bit of a tangent, but at the same, it's interesting because Hasbro is creating all of Marvel's toys and therefore helping Disney create not only do you have an MCU, but you have a toy line alongside of that makes them probably just as much money, if not more, than what the movies do. So you have merchandising as well. That's hopefully making Hasbro some money, but it's generating a massive amount of money for Disney. And so the first people to do that was Transformers. You have the movies that came out and then the toys that came out with the movies, and they were highly successful. You can watch the special features on the first Transformers movie, and they have a whole segment on why the toys were so important to create for these movies. So you have Hasbro's way of creating media content and selling toys to it, merchandising for it. And then you have Disney as a powerhouse behind that as well. And that's how they moved from Transformers kind of playing in this very small pond to creating 23, 24 Marvel movies today.
That doesn't even include the shows.
Yeah.
That number doesn't include literally any of the spin-offs, any of anything else. It's just straight up like the MCU. So,
it kind of makes you wonder if Marvel didn't get popular because of Transformers, obviously. But if Marvel didn't get popular, if Marvel had to stand on its own 2 feet, would we have had 10, 20, like 23? There's only 2 movies before Disney owned it. So that's 12 years of Marvel and 21 movies. Would we have had 21 Transformers movies?
I would say no, just because Transformers is like a smaller, finite amount of characters, whereas...
No, you could do a Megatron movie.
Well, no. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
If you just pick apart all the individual characters and do them like they do in Spotlight comics, but, that wouldn't go over in the public as easily because... I don't know. You say Superman or you say Starscream, a lot more kids know who Superman is than Starscream. I'm going to say that like flat out. I'm pretty sure that's true because I would say Transformers is still almost on the cusp of being a bit of a niche because when I say I like Transformers, I actually don't really mean the toys at all. I mean predominantly I like the shows and the cartoons. But people, when you look in their eye, they're like, oh yeah, Michael Bay. And I'm like, no, I actually don't. I enjoy them as a fan because I know that's kind of all we could get. But I do, that doesn't mean I turned a blind eye to all the weird stuff that was going on behind the scenes, and the treatment of Megan Fox and the fact that Steven Spielberg walked away unscathed, even though Michael Bay is now a joke. I mean, he kind of deserves to be a joke, to be honest. And yet,
Evil frat boy.
I mean, yeah.
We'll talk about that in the next movie.
Oh. Are we getting a LF2C CU? Oh God, I don't know. We're gonna have to make some money.
And it's just funny too because Disney also, it's just funny. It's funny too because I'd say it again. It's funny too because Disney learned from Transformers' mistakes where a lot of people don't know this, but the first and second Transformers movies had 100% fan, inspired ideas. They would post,
on forums for,
quote
TFW.
unquote, leak pictures of concept arts, and they would take feedback
Input and
from
stuff,
the
yeah.
fans and change things so that way. And some of it was good, like Megatron's face.
Yeah.
And then some of it was terrible, like the racism.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Interesting topic. Is that all we're gonna say on that, I guess?
Yeah, I don't have anything left to say. Our next podcast is going to be about sort of patriotism and how it really played into, I want to say, like, the first two, and even beyond, all of the Transformers movies.
Well, the strange American political coding
yeah.
for the Transformers movies and what that looked like and why it was even there. And how, I would actually say how also because of things like the MCU, that we just are so unfazed by it that we almost kind of get caught off guard when somebody points it out.
Yeah.
And we actually go, that's not there. And then, you know, if you have some freaking analytical skills, you can go back and look and be like, wait a minute.
That's totally
That's a
there.
weird placement of the American flag now that I'm watching this again. And
like, why was that there? Yeah.
So,
and we'll actually talk a little bit about how Transformers, you know, their relationship with the military inspired Marvel's relationship with the military and that sort of thing. But again, that's something to look forward to in the next podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
we'll see y'all later. Or not, you know, COVID.